This episode of Wheat Pete's Word is brought to you by Syngenta. Stack the deck in your favor in 2025 with a stacked cereals lineup of crop protection products from Syngenta. With proven technology for exceptional disease control and greater plant resilience, you'll find game-changing solutions for your wheat crop. Visit syngenta.ca for more info.
Good day and welcome to Wheat Pete's Word here on Real Agriculture for Wednesday, February the 5th. On this episode of the Word, stress. Oh my gosh, we're going to solve that with longer days. Spring is coming. Then have fun, learn lots, and after that, we are going to talk crops. Just a whole lot of questions that have come in. I'm going to try to catch up on a few that I've missed over the last month or 6 weeks. Let's go! Yes, the stress level. Man, this tariff stuff, it's just the uncertainty that all of this discussion causes. The markets go up, the markets go down. You don't know if you're going to be able to buy phosphorus fertilizer. Our American counterparts looking at the potash markets. The stress level is through the roof. Well, you know, whenever people are stressed, it really is a challenge. And one of the things I'm going to talk about is Wheat Pete's 15. It really is. It's the winter time. It's meeting season. And there's lots of stress, but we're all in this together. If you get a chance, get out to a meeting, have some fun, talk to people, interact. It's really, really important. And at the end of the day, pick up that phone, call somebody you haven't talked to in a little while, and just ask them how they are doing, how they are really doing. You will make their day no matter what. And on that note, making my day, we are getting longer days every day. So for the month of February, we start out near London, Ontario. I'm using London, Ontario data. We get about 2 minutes and 23 seconds more sunlight every day. By the end of February, it's 2 minutes and 53 seconds, almost 3 minutes per day. And by the way, the whole month of March, we just stay right up there between about 2 minutes 53 seconds and 2 minutes 58 seconds that entire month. Every day, not quite 3 minutes, but almost. And with the sunshine, with the added day length, it just has to make you feel better. You know that spring is coming. So if you have a heated shop, get that equipment in there, get it ready to go. It doesn't look like it right now on the 5th of February, but man, spring is coming. And talking about the weather, what different weather all across North America, but even here in Ontario. So, Nature Nut Nick reporting that the temperatures for January, quite cold. The average temperature for his weather station at Strathroy, minus 6.3 degrees Celsius. The 26-year average, minus 4.8. So, a nice bit colder for sure. We felt that. Looks like February is staying cold from the forecast right now. It's a more normal winter. We'll get to the impacts on crops in a bit. But meanwhile, as you look further south, there are other areas where it's not being this cold. There's other areas where they're getting remarkably little snow. Iowa reporting some of the lowest snowfall amounts in a long time. And you come to Ontario, and we get up to the Grey and Bruce Peninsula, and the last 2 weeks, not starting last Friday, gosh, in Bruce County, there were students that only went to school one day, the last Friday of 2 weeks, 9 days in a row. In Grey County, 18 snow days in January. Man, oh man, it's like you're not in school at all, but just different weather. You come further south or you go east. So Lindsay Smith reporting the Ottawa Valley, almost no snow. She's much more worried about low temperature winter kill than she is about anything else because of how little snow they have in that region, the cold temperatures they've had. Similarly, we get down along the north shore of Lake Erie, the north shore of Lake Ontario, almost no snow. It is just an incredibly different winter. And it really is all the lake effect flurries coming off the lakes that were not frozen to speak of. There's getting to be quite a bit of ice cover now, so hopefully that tails off. But man, it has been different weather across Ontario, no doubt about that. So here's a quote that I came across that I'd really like you to think about. I think it hits home. People will forget what you did. They will forget what you say. But people will never forget how you make them feel. It's like, wow. Now, I got to tell you, there are some people that have amazing memories, and I am not sure at all that my brother-in-law, Mark, will forget what I did or what I said, because his memory is just like a steel trap. But the crux of the issue is that it really is about how you make people feel. If you make them feel valued and you make them feel wanted, a part of the group, then they will remember that, and you may well have a friend for life out of it. So just try to make people feel good, because it'll make you feel good, and everybody wins out of that scenario. Hey, Lloyd saying, Peter, I love how you work at meetings. You kind of engage everyone, and you're always trying to evoke good discussion. And so Lloyd's actually trying to do that at his meetings. So thanks for those kind words, Lloyd. What I will say to everybody who is going to these meetings, to these learning opportunities, kudos to you, because I continue to tell all the people in the urban people, if you will, the urbanites, that we are the most educated workforce on the world, that we just have so many opportunities. It's ongoing, continuing adult education. But for goodness sakes, have some fun while you're there. Engage with the speakers, lighten up and discuss. Lloyd actually saying, man, farmers just are somber by nature. But if you can kind of engage them, things really pick up. Absolutely. So get out there, go to those meetings, and when you're at home, watch sessions from the Ontario Ag Conference. Join Tech Talk Tuesdays. Join the agronomists. Man, what a blast I had on Monday night talking as the host of the agronomists. That was just a great session with Dennis Pennington and Gord Speckschneider. So much that we unwrapped, and we'll link it in the post. If you didn't see it, it really is, I think, worth a listen. Lots of learnings from that Yen program. Okay, I want to move on. I want to talk crops. So first up, Kevin sending an email, and thanks for doing that, Kevin. First thing Monday morning, all there was talk of tariffs, and Kevin says, okay, something non-tariff. Let's talk about land rents. So Kevin, of course, is in Essex County, and he could not believe that some land at auction had, and a good land, no question, but the cash rent lease at $525 per acre. Now remember, at the Ag Conference, Ryan Parker did say that purchase price for land values in Ontario, in the counties that he tracks, dropped, but it dropped 1.4%. So let's say purchase prices are staying fairly constant, a few more farms on the market from what I hear, but it looks like land rents really are not dropping very much at all. And Kevin said that there's this new movement out there, and it's not the first time I've heard this, where crop shares are quite common in Ontario. And the typical crop share was either a 1/3, 2/3, so the landowner got 1/3 of the crop and the farmer got 2/3 of the crop, and the farmer did all the work and paid all of the inputs, or a 50-50 crop share where the landowner paid half of the inputs and got half of the crop. Well, the new standard apparently is the landlord gets 50% of the crop, but the person farming it pays 100% of the crop inputs. And I kind of go like, how does that work? Oh my gosh. But then I took a step back and said, wait a minute. Okay, let's think about this. So if that land went at auction for $525 an acre cash rent, if I get 60 bushel crushed soybeans at $14 a bushel, which is in the game of today's price, that's $840 an acre. 40% of that is only $420 an acre that the grower gets, or pardon me, that the landlord gets rather. And so maybe that's not such a bad deal after all. Anyway, the times they are changing, there's no doubt about that. But wowzers, 50% without paying any of the inputs is a different pricing setup. There's no doubt about that. Hey, let's move on. I want to talk about stripe rust. So the Prairie Crop Disease Network, if you're listening from the prairie provinces, man, watch out for stripe rust in 2025. So stripe rust, typically for the prairies, comes out of the Pacific Northwest. So Washington State, that part of the world, and they track stripe rust there. The trade winds bring it from there across the prairie provinces and infects the prairie spring wheat crop. Meanwhile, in Ontario, we typically get stripe rust moving up from Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, or Kentucky, the eastern seaboard more. And that's why we had it so early in 2024, because it overwintered a whole lot further north, because in 2024 we had no winter, converse to 2025 when we do have a winter. So in Ontario, I don't expect stripe rust to show up early. I can be proven wrong, but just given the winter we've had. Meanwhile, in the prairie provinces, because there is so much stripe rust, and in that Pacific Northwest area, they are talking about a 27 to 57% yield loss. 57% yield loss on susceptible varieties of wheat that do not have a fungicide applied. You start to get that inoculum load into the air, man, it is just a huge risk. So keep stripe rust up there on your scouting list. I think it could be a potential that we're going to have to control more stripe rust throughout the prairies in the winter wheat crop in the spring wheat crop rather than we normally do. The midge risk maps are also up. Have a look at that, because we've done an excellent job in Western Canada with midge tolerant varieties, but of course we don't all grow midge tolerant varieties, so have a look at those midge risk maps if you farm in Western Canada. Meanwhile, Bob here in Ontario saying, okay, Peter, well, can you give me some insight? When this happened the last time, I think it was 30 years ago, I had amazing looking winter wheat in the fall, and then we got this winter with lots and lots of snow, and I forward sold some wheat, and in the spring we were just decimated with snow mold. I'd like to sell some wheat again, try to, lock in some price at least, but I just don't know if we're going to have that same problem. 30 years ago, it was devastating. We kept a bit of wheat to fill the contracts, but man, we shouldn't have. It was just that bad. So, Bob, snow mold absolutely is always a potential. When we get these extended periods of snow cover, you get 6 to 8 weeks or 12 weeks of snow cover, and when you have that big canopy underneath the snow. What I will say is that there are definite differences between varieties in terms of their susceptibility, and the seed treatments that we use today do offer some limited suppression of snow mold. I don't really expect at this point that we're going to have a big snow mold problem. Typically, we actually see more snow rot than we do snow mold, and that happens when the snow melts, and how long the snow ponds there, and just how much wetness there is in that early spring period to spread that snow rot. They're very similar organisms. I can't predict it at this point. I'm not all that concerned, but it is a potential concern, actually, for me, more in winter barley than in winter wheat, because our winter barley varieties really do seem to be a little bit more susceptible, from what I've seen, to snow mold than winter wheat. But it's a fair concern, and yep, I can't tell you to forward sell wheat because we just don't know what happens underneath that snow. Scott saying, hey Peter, it is not frozen underneath all that snow. Scott, that's actually a good thing, because what it means is when the snow melts, the water can actually go into the soil and get away more quickly than it is when it's frozen and it ponds and it runs off and it creates erosion. So being not frozen underneath is absolutely a good thing. Yes, it is a different spring. Mark from Michigan saying, okay, Peter, what's the deal with this particular winter in my nitrogen on my winter wheat program? I've been 65% early, 35% late. I see that with your nutrient uptake work that you did, that nitrogen uptake is quite early. Are we changing that program? And so I think the answer is yes. So two things. In 2024, with no winter, we saw massive response to early applied sulfur, way more than what we would normally expect. And I think that's because the wheat broke dormancy in February in many cases, and its early demand for sulfur is quite high. There was too cool of temperatures to really get any sulfur release out of the soil, and so we actually needed that sulfur super early. In 2025 spring, it looks more quote-unquote normal, and so I think the snow is going to go away. It's going to take a bit more time for that wheat to break dormancy, to start that growth, to have that demand for sulfur and for nitrogen. So I do think we're back to a more normal situation. I still want the sulfur there early. I want all of it there early. And I do think we want the big shot of nitrogen first. I don't want it mid-March because I think you suffer a lot from risk of loss from denitrification, but by 10th of April, 20th of April, I think that big shot has got to be there. And so we're probably moving more towards an 80-20 split or something like that to make sure we don't short that wheat crop for nitrogen early. Of course, on big wheat, more nitrogen early is going to increase lodging risk. No doubt about that. Okay, I want to talk about cover crops quickly as well. We've talked lots about buckwheat. Really interesting stuff that Aaron Mills talked about buckwheat. And I think several weeks ago, Joanne Thiessen-Martens from University of Manitoba talked about her work and that she couldn't get buckwheat to release phosphorus. The work coming out of Aaron Mills' program in Prince Edward Island is really intriguing because they're trying to find the functions for the cover crops and where the fit is. And in their work, buckwheat is really effective at nutrient cycling, not just phosphorus, not necessarily pulling more phosphorus out of the soil, but just in terms of making nutrients, all nutrients, seem to be more available to that next crop. A really interesting finding. By the way, buckwheat also gets high marks for weed suppression, rather. Buckwheat itself can become a weed, but it does do a good job of weed suppression. Some really great work there out of Prince Edward Island and looking at where all those things fit. One of the other really interesting things, man, we all love alfalfa. Did you know that alfalfa actually increases the risk of root and crown rot diseases in the subsequent crop? So does phacelia. So, not all of these crops that we grow are 100% good. I still love alfalfa because you can grow amazing corn after the alfalfa. But maybe that's one of the reasons why we don't grow such great soybeans always following an alfalfa hay crop, because soybeans are much more susceptible to fusarium, crown, and root rots than corn is. Maybe that's part of the reason corn works so well. Okay, I want to move on. Emily asking, Peter, looking at sweet clover, and I just wondering why is it always red clover that we grow as a cover crop in our winter wheat crop? What would be wrong with sweet clover? A little bit more aggressive taproot, a biennial, isn't going to cause problems with harvest. And so great thought process, Emily, absolutely. The reason is twofold. One, sweet clover is more sensitive to our spring-applied herbicides like Buctril M. We can hurt it a lot more. And sweet clover also isn't as shade tolerant, so we often don't get as good as establishment of sweet clover as we do red clover in that scenario. Give it a try. It can work. I've had neighbors that make it work. But whatever you do with sweet clover, don't leave it till spring to kill it, because in the spring, That's just like red clover on steroids. It just grows incredibly fast and can become a big, big problem. Carl out of North Dakota saying, okay, Peter, is there a plant growth regulator out there that I can use that will get more protein in my wheat crop? Having real struggles getting protein in my wheat crop, just looking for some silver bullet to get me that better protein. Well, Carl, fair enough. That silver bullet's going to be nitrogen, and maybe nitrogen plus sulfur. It's not going to be a plant growth regulator. In most studies, the plant growth regulator has zero impact on protein, but where it does have an impact on protein, it's almost never positive. It will reduce protein levels a little bit in many studies, not exactly sure why, but that's what the data says. So no plant growth regulator is going to give you more protein in that wheat crop. Okay, going to finish up here quickly. Had a discussion with Tom. Tom grows double crop soybeans, and he says, my corn always plants so nice after those double crop soybeans, so much better than anywhere else. And, I'm kind of going like, why? And Tom says, well, I think why is because the soys bring some nitrogen, and we shave the ground so there's almost no residue. Okay, so Tom, your double crop soybeans do not, I repeat, do not bring nitrogen to the table. Soybeans rob the soil of nitrogen. They're one of the best scavengers of nitrogen, so it's not a nitrogen thing. But I think your residue is bang on. You look at those double crop soybeans most of the time. They are short, wimpy looking plants. You combine them, the residue just turns to dust. And so now I have no residue to speak of that's interfering with that corn crop planting. I've got basically fairly bare soil that warms up quickly. Everything comes together and works, and I think that's really the crux of the issue there. And by the way, Tom says he's worried about soybean cyst nematode by using double crop soybeans. I agree with that. And also his struggles to get the wheat harvested in time, which is just, I think, the same for pretty much everybody across Ontario. And with that, that's it. That's all on behalf of the team here at Real Agriculture. This is Wheat Pete with the word for Wednesday, February the 5th. Hey, keep the comments, the feedback coming, and I will talk to you again next week. Looking forward to it. See you then. Bye now.